Okay, so guys, let us start our first chapter. Actually, this is where we will now start the real learning. We are going to talk about actually variables. Okay, what are variables? What are variables? Now, you may have already has got an experience of some other programming language like maybe Excel VBA, Access VBA, or maybe any other language, PHP language, ASP.NET, right? Or you may be a beginner. This is the first time you are learning programming language. So keeping everything in mind, I will start from very basics. Okay, we will go very slow, right? Because I have to cover each of you. Now, what are the variables? Variable term is very common term which you will find in every programming language. Now, if you know me from my courses, you know that I have got VBA also, Excel VBA course, Access VBA course. So there also I always say that when I'm teaching those programming languages, that the variable term you will find in every programming language like Python. And today this is all about the Python. What is a variable? And why do we need to know this? You see, variable is nothing but it is, you can say, a container where you can put the information, where you can put the information, any type of information, right? Any type of information means, well, any type of information means that it can be a number, it can be a decimal, or it can be a number, with the alphanumeric, right? Or it can be a text value, okay, whatever it is. Now, the thing is that you see, uh, if you're, let's say, creating a calculator, right? User says that I want to see 1 plus 5 result. User say that I want to see 10 plus 10 result, 10 minus 10 result. You do not know on that calculator which key user will press, right? But now when you are writing a program, okay, when you're writing a program, when the user presses 5, that information you want to store it somewhere so that down the line in the programming you can use that value, that hey, user has actually used this value, user has pressed this button, so I'm going to actually save this value somewhere. I'm going to tell Python that please, I'm going to tell Python that please save that value somewhere so that I can use it. But then how you're going to save it, that is where the concept of the variables comes. Okay, I'm just giving you one example, this calculator, but it can be anything. Maybe you are opening some text file and you want to read the data. Now tell me one thing. If you have a data, for example, if this is your Excel data, let's say this is Excel file or it can be any other file. Okay, any other file. Maybe it is, this data is available on SQL Server, MS Access database, MySQL, anywhere guys. The point is that if you have to do some calculation on this, right, then how you can do the calculation? Obviously, you will have to store this data somewhere in this Python program, and then you will go and check line by line or whatever you want to do, that how is it. Maybe let's say they say that give us the results here saying that if the score is greater than 70 they are all pass, otherwise fail, for example, and you want to definitely, I mean, go and take this, you want to create this program in Python, right, using PyCharm ID. So where that information you're going to store? Tell me, right? Because see, information has to be housed somewhere. It has to be stored somewhere so that when we write the program, we can refer it. We can refer to these things. It is like suppose you and me are living in different societies in different cities, right? Now, if I have to meet you, if I have to meet you, right? I know that I know that my mind has stored the information about your address. Or maybe I do not know. I ask you, hey, I want to, let's have fun this weekend. So I'm coming to your place. Where do you live? You'll give me the address, right? So that address, you will keep that somewhere on the paper. Maybe you'll write, or maybe you will say, message me, WhatsApp me, right? Or let's say you are you have a very sharp memory. Okay, so you just keep that, you remember that. Ultimately information is being stored somewhere, isn't it? So when the weekend comes, if it is on the paper, you'll have a look at, on the paper and you will say, oh, you can see the address and you follow those instructions, right? You'll go to that city or wherever, and then inside that city, or in that particular locality, and then address. This is how the things work in real life, isn't it? You have a name, I have a name. If I'm right now teaching you guys, you all are 15 people in this class. Can I say that student 5 answer my this question? Who student 5 I'm referring to? I should know your name, isn't it? That is the information. So we always, we always, we have been dependent on the information. Always. Before we even start writing these codes and, thinking of doing the automations, data is the backbone. If you don't have a data, you can, where will you do the automation? Isn't it? So for us, it's not just about the industry, but otherwise also in your day-to-day life, if you see, data is actually the key. Data is the key, correct? So to deal with the data, which means that when you have a data, so you can do the analysis. You can do the analysis, right? On data, right? So we must store that data. We must store that data somewhere. So we can do all these things, right? So to store the data, to store that information, we need we need a proper system, which is nothing but a variable. Okay, now let me give you practical example. Okay, so I'm going to press my shift key, down arrow key, down arrow key, and down arrow key, right? Now we want to insert the comment, right? So I'll simply say control backslash, correct? I have explained you this also. So this is how we comment the lines. So see, now the thing is that obviously as we move ahead, we will do the projects also, all those things, right? Different type of calculators games we will see. But right now I say that, let me give an example. Suppose guys, I say that x is equals to Ajay. Now, what do you mean by this? X equals to Ajay. This means that x is your variable and it has a value called Ajay. Because whatever the value comes after equals to, that is supposed to be in the variable which comes before the equals to. This is obviously, we all know, this is a text. This is not a number, right? So this is called string data type. This is called string data type. In programming world, we call this a string data type, right? When I'm teaching you, I may use the Excel VBA also in if I think that I should tell you about that little bit and give you the information about the Excel VBA also. So that means, this only means that basically, because I have been doing Excel VBA programming from more than 10 years, so I like to sometimes give the examples, and same I do in my Excel VBA classes. Okay, so anyways, so this string data type is basically, it simply means that it represents the text values. Got the point? Any text value. Okay, any text value. So x is here, x is here, x is here a variable, x is here a variable. Okay, it's a variable name. You can give any type of a name. There are some rules which we are going to follow, but right now just assume that you can write here any name, any alphabet. Okay, so x is my variable, and x actually has a value called string, and that, not a value actually, but we call it a data type. Data type means the nature of the value, the nature of the value. Okay, now if I have to run this line, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say print x, like this. We use the print x. Okay, so what will happen when I run this code, go in the run and say that I want to run this code, or we can say shift F10 also. Remember, I will use the shift F10 also to expedite my the lecture. Okay, right now let us simply run this program. Okay, and let's see that what we are actually going to get from this? Okay, so you see that I have got my answer over here, Ajay, right? Same way, let's say I want to have one more value. Let's just go and press enter, and let's say y equals to, let's say, Alan. Okay, now I want to print this value also, right? This variable also. Okay, so I'm going to press simply shift F8. Sorry, F10 actually. So you see that we got the value here, Ajay and Alan. So in this particular lecture, what I'm trying to tell you is that these are the variables. We can use them anywhere in the program. I told you that they are used to store the information. One is variable. The second one is the data type, right? What is a data type? Okay, so here data type is what? When you look at it, it clearly says the data type is string. You don't say text when we are talking about the term called data type, string data type. In your interview also, if they will ask you the question, they will not say that what do you understand by text. They will generally say that, so what do you know about the data type string? Why we use it? It is used to store the text values. Okay, now before we move ahead, before I tell you how I can use this, can I somehow know that, that what is a data type basically? Though I know it, but if what if we can check this from the, the language itself? So what you can do, you can check always, you can use a type function also. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to write here type, give me the type of this X and give me the type of this Y, for example, right? So you can write this. It's pretty simple, right? Let me just drag this down. So I'm going to press now Shift F10 again. Let's see that what is the output I'm going to get. Look at this, guys. This is called the string class or data type, you can say, right? String class, str. So system will tell you. Make sense? Now, for example, now once you are done with this, you got the point, right? So now let me just comment these lines. Now, as I said that we have stored the information here. Now where I can use it? That's the point. You see, I can use this anywhere. For example, maybe I want to concatenate these. Okay, maybe I want to, okay, so this is my last name, for example, right? Maybe I want to actually go and create a first name and the last name. So can I do that? Well, for that, let's simply go and say X, right? Now, if I write here X, what will happen, guys? Shift F10, let me run the command. You'll see here Ajay, but I want Y also. So how I'm going to do that? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that, okay, can you please do the X and Y? Can you add them, X plus Y? Let me run the code, Shift F10. Okay, you see that we got here Ajay Parmar together. Many students, when they learn their programming language for the first time, they really get shocked here that how language is able to add two text values. Please remember that when you're dealing with the text values, plus sign acts like a concatenate. Even in Excel VBA, this happens the same way. So you're not going to get the error. Most of the time when I ask the students, majority of student, they say that this is not possible. See, plus works here like a concatenate. Okay, so what happens about the actually the concatenate? Like in Excel, all of us have been working on Excel, isn't it? Because Excel is the first baby step, right? I can't really imagine any of my batch where I see that no, my any of my student, even a single one student, has never used Excel. Excel is used everywhere, isn't it? Right? But anyways, so we all know that this AND operator actually is used to join the values. So what happens if I run this code again? Right? So what happens if I run this code again? If I'm going to run this code again, right? Let's see that. See that. What happens here? Unsupported operand and generally because when you actually have, if you have used this data somewhere in Excel, for example here, right? So generally we have this thing that if I say concatenate this and this, I get the answer here A34, isn't it? Right? But you see here the problem is this, that what you're doing here is that's not going to be allowed. Okay, you'll get the error. So either you just say plus, or the another thing is that I can also use the comma. Can I use the comma here? What will happen then? Okay, let's run the code again. Let's see that. You see that I got the answer. You got the answer here, but this time your value has a space because you have used the comma. If I simply say x plus y, if I say like this, and now I run the code, then you see again I'm repeating. See that you will not have the space. Okay, so the point is very simple. If you have a lot of variables, you can always use the print command and you can use the comma, 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 right? I know the next question is that, so how about if I run this? Okay, so we understood that by default, what is happening here is that there's a space created. But what if I want to insert here a comma, maybe Ajay comma, Parmar, or maybe, Ajay hyphen, right? So for that, you can do some changes in the print command. Okay, since this is a very easy topic, so that's why I'm actually trying to educate you about the print command also here. Okay, if you see here, when you hover here on the print, okay, when you hover here, you see that here you see that print and then values. I'm talking about this, right? There is another parameter after the comma. We have already printed the value, but there is a command here which is called ACP. How you want your data to be separated. There's another command called end, which I will tell you later, but SCP colon. This is something I can use here in case if I want to use. Okay, let's say I say that separator has to be this two hyphens. Now what will happen? If you run this tool again, you see that when I'm going to run this, we'll get here the separator hyphen hyphen. So you cannot complain that print is a very restricted function. No, you can always use this. But please remember that as a beginner, you may forget to write this SCP word, separator word, right? Now I try to run this again. Let's run the code again. Okay, see this. What is happening here now? If you do that, if you do not put the SCP parameter name, what will happen, this will be treated as another text, and which will be actually concatenated with x variable, y variable. So you will get actually Ajay space Parmar space hyphen hyphen. So we must go and write this parameter name here, otherwise the things will not work with equals to. Make sense, right? So you can write here, I mean, whatever you want. I can write here, let's say the comma as well. Okay, and now if I run this, let's say that's the point, right? And obviously guys, you can change these variables also. Like for example, I can write here y first and then x, right? See, Python has stored this information. Now for me, I can use this x and y anytime in the code anywhere once they are defined. Okay, so if I run this code now, we should see here Parmar Ajay. Look at this. And obviously guys, you can change the name also. Like for example, if I just go and write here that this is, let's say, Alan, for example, and now if we run the code, there's no problem, right? You can always replace your variable with a new value. I hope you got the point, right? So this is where once we have written these values, once we have stored these values in our variables, we can use this anywhere. Okay, now before we end up this session, I want to obviously also say one particular thing for those who already have some programming background experience. In Python, you find one thing very different. I don't know how you're going to take it, whether you will like it or you will say, oh, that's quite weird. I don't know, right? But it's initially, honestly, when I was learning Python few years back, I also find this quite weird that generally you don't have to define the variable data type here. Like for example, if you go in Excel VBA or any other language, I guess in every language, we first actually go and define. We clearly go and write here that our variable I is going to have a string data type. Okay, and then we start writing here something something. Now this is just an Excel VBA window. Just for information, I'm just telling you this for your extra information. Okay, so don't get serious over here, right? So you always tell actually that what is the data type? Is it a string or any other data type, which we will cover, like integer data type or another different type of data types, right? So you always define there. In most of the languages you define, but in the Python you find this very different. Now I really love this option actually now. once I get used to it, that you don't have to define it. You don't have to define it. You will be able to, Python will be able to know that what is a data type. Remember, I use the type also somewhere here. Yeah, here, right? So when I wanted to check what is the data type the Python has defined for this, this is how it is. Python automatically checks. So you just have to write the variable. That's it. So you immediately start. You save. I can say you end up saving few lines because you don't have to go and give all those the commands that this is how the variable is going to be. Okay, so now we in this lecture we have started the variables, right? And in the variables we learned that there is a string data type, and in that string data type it means we can hold the text values, and we can also any point in time use the type function. And print is a command we use to check the results. And then also in the print I told you that you can use the one of the parameter called separator, right? And if you don't use it and if you just keep it like this, then what will happen? This will be treated as another value. Okay, right? So these are the very, very important things. Now let's meet in the next lecture and continue with the variables.